Welcome back to Tech, Tesla, and Trends. Tonight, we're returning to the multidimensional thinking, Module 5. And in this particular module, we're discussing exact resources, the specifics required. So this is where the rubber meets the road, or begins to meet the road, I should say. The first thing that is required is people. Now, people matter. And contrary to what all of this Twitter garbage is saying in the mainstream media, is where their narrative is that Elon doesn't care about people, he's firing them left and right. That's actually not true. What matters to Elon is that the right people are in the position. It is important that you have people who understand the task that they are assigned to do and who are able to innovate, to think through, and operate in an effective manner. When you're paying somebody $200,000 a year, it is insane for that person to freak out and think that they have the need not to talk to somebody because they're so stressed. Get a grip on life. This is not unacceptable. When you are paid that much, you are paid to perform. This is reality. Now, much of the tech industry has taken the tack of, we just need our mental health days and other things like unto that. The reality of it is, if you take a look at how Elon operates, pain is a reality. You must operate and achieve what you are given. And if you're going to fail fast. Figure it out and move forward. This is the level of skill sets that Elon is looking for. You need to be competent in your area of expertise. So if you're a coder, you need to be able to write code that is competent and clear and effective. If you're manufacturing expert, you need to be on the level of, say, a Sandy Munro or somebody who's got the experience to understand what you're looking at and how the vehicle's supposed to fit together, and the processes and how that all intricately meshes. People matter. Not in the way that a lot of the mainstream tries to play it out. A body in a seat is not sufficient for an effective company. That needs to be understood. If you are sitting there doing nothing, you are failing to provide value to the company. And as such, you are actually hurting the company. And in that regard, the best solution possible is to quickly provide that individual with the opportunity to go find a new place to become productive. Because the company is in dire need of an individual who can code, or who can speak to people, who can make sales or design a widget. That's what the company needs. And in this case, for Twitter to become profitable, because quite frankly, Twitter has not been profitable. It's a dumpster fire, as Stephen Mark Ryan is fond of saying. And it truly has been a dumpster fire when it comes to its policies and the manner in which it was managed. And no offense to Jack, but Jack let this happen by not paying attention and keeping his eye on the ball. And yes, in those early days, it seemed all one way was, that things were wonderful in the digital world. But now we've learned a very different lesson. And it's important to recognize that people matter. And this is how Elon looks at people. Not that he undervalues individuals as people. Quite to the contrary. If you're not cut out for the job, it's not that he doesn't like you or that he hates you in any way, shape, or form. He just doesn't need your services for that task. He's looking for competent people who are capable and willing to work the hours. For heaven's sake, look at the fact that the man sleeps in his office, under his desk, with his head on a physics book at one point in the past, and he's doing so today in the Twitter offices. This is who he is. If you wish to work for him, you must work. And that is one of those exact resource requirements. A person who can work and do the job. Now, contrary to the last Twitter CEO prior to Elon, name left out on purpose, the question, what have you done, is a golden management opportunity and lesson that was taught. All he wanted to do was complain about the individuals that worked for him. He had failed to set very clear, specific, exacting standards and executable goals, and as such, enabled people to whine, cry, and complain. Yes, this will offend people, and that's a reality. Companies require expertise if they're going to thrive, if they're going to be profitable. It's one thing to milk a cushy job where millions of dollars are flowing through. But guess what? That's a lot like FTX now, isn't it? You're just stealing from the people that are providing you with resources. That's theft. Those are not the types of people that Elon's looking to work with. It comes down to a simple requirement. Are you willing to do the work? What have you done? And that's kind of one of those other questions that gets asked in interviews. Well, what have you done so far? And it's not a question of, I need you to pound your chest and brag and puff yourself up. It's a true curiosity question. One of, are you able to innovate? Are you able to associate the knowledge that you've gained in life and then apply it? People matter. Not in the same way that everybody else is, everybody's perfect and special. Yes, people are. But for the task at hand, working for Elon, if you're not cut out for the work, it will be hell to work for him. You can't cut it. You're not made for it. So don't even pretend. Step aside. There are others who are willing to volunteer that level of effort for the pay that is offered. And it's about achieving a goal. That is sufficient for those that are part of that process. And if it's not your thing, it's okay. Elon's not going to judge you for that. He's just going to ask you to leave. You either can cut the mustard and make the sandwich, or you can't. Or maybe that was the problem at Twitter. They were making too many sandwiches. Just a little observation. If you have more food sites on site, perhaps on site than the number of actual functional tasks occurring, perhaps you have a problem in your company. I'm just going to say, food's important, but it's not the main thing you were hired to do. Think about what you were hired to do. That matters. That's why the exact resources and the specifics of those resources is Module 5. Now, then we move on to the supply chain that matters. And that's also part of the resources. But that is more Module 6 in how it is handled and how it is managed, those materials. But in a brief touch on resources from a supply chain perspective, you do need to understand what is needed to be done. And you need to know who is going to do it. Again, coming back to the people and what is required to win. And for those at Twitter, Elon does have a clue about what is required to win. You may not think he does, but when he asks those questions open-ended and you provide an answer, if you think he didn't hear you, you're wrong. He understands, and he's put the pieces together. Now, he may have a different perspective than what you're thinking of. And just because you've done something for decades doesn't mean you are the end-all, be-all expert. Sometimes innovation comes, sometimes? No. All the time, it seems like. And that's probably an overgeneralization. But the majority of the time, innovation comes from outside your industry. It hits from a complete left field and changes everything about what you do. That's what's happening to Legacy Automotive. That's what's happening across the digital world. That's what happened with the internet. For those of you who don't know, information used to be on paper and it was exchanged in a very slow and meticulous, sometimes meticulous fashion. It's not done that way anymore. And yes, we still have paper that flows, but that's a preference issue now. The vast majority of all information is digital, and it came out of left field. It wasn't the banks that brought digital money transfers into our capability as individuals and consumers to utilize. They were keeping the vast majority of that information to themselves because it allowed them to play the game faster. They didn't innovate. It came from outside the banking industry. In fact, if you look at it, Elon was involved in that as well. So, keep in mind the people. This matters. Now, once you have a clue about who's doing what, when, and where, you need to feed that back into your plan. And that's part of the old Module 3 and understanding how that time is your friend and foe. Now, tonight we've discussed how people matter, that as a resource they are critical to the success of your company. Specifically, I've used Twitter as an example, but that's the same story at Tesla. It's the same story at SpaceX. I'm sure it's the same story at Neuralink and at every other Elon tech company, including the boring one. Sorry, had to play that game. It is important to recognize that when you're hired to do something, you should be able to do it. And if you can't, you need to step up and learn how very quickly or step out. And that's part of the struggles. I'd love to have your comments. I know a lot of what I've said is going to tick some people off, and that's quite all right. The intent here is to explain how Elon thinks about and utilizes that resource, which is called humans. In the coming age and time. some of that will be Tesla bot. So keep in mind effectiveness. As I've mentioned before, you are scarcity. That which is in your brain, that skill of thinking matters and can help to make you competitive in this very rapidly changing world. And that matters, especially in the exact resource world of humanity, and especially if you want to ever work with Elon Musk. Have a good night. We'll carry this conversation on in the comments.